Well, follow-up letters after the report that you did. So there's the confirmation letter, right? There's the IMV or whatever monitoring visit it is. It could be a SSV, it could be a SIV, or it could be a closeout visit. But the process is the same. And then there's a follow-up letter. This is for CRAs. Follow-up visit is for the sites and the patients. Right, so you saw the IMV report. In the book, we have a report for the SSV as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're structured the same, but they focus on different things. Like the IMV focuses on, there's only 3 things it could focus on, right? Do you know what those are? The only 3 things for IMV. Three main things.
Source data verification.
Just source.
Source.
Mm-hmm.
Medical record.
No, that's part of source.
Okay.
Source. What's the next 2?
IP
That's
reconciliation.
IP. Okay, and then the third.
And
Only one more thing you look at as a monitor at an intern monitoring visit. Source?
IMB approval.
IP. Yeah, but what's that part of?
regulatory.
That's right. Okay, these are the 3 things that monitors do. That's it. Okay, regulatory, IP, and source. Now these are all integrated together in these reports. I mean, the report's organized into different sections. And then good clinical practice, GCP
Mm-hmm.
and Alcoa-C, those are all integrated into these things. Okay. There's GCP, there's Alcoa-C. This is just integrated into this stuff. It's just, you're supposed to know this. Right, but these are the actual monitoring activities. So if you ever interview as a monitor, or even if it's like a step below a monitor, like an in-house CRA, they're going to ask you things about this, scenario-based questions about any of these 3 things. They might ask you scenario-based questions about GCP and Alcoa, but it's really the same. Like this, because this integrates into all of this, it applies to all of that as well. Right? So there's a lot of words that will be confusing, like this, follow-up letter and a follow-up visit. Not the same at all. Alright? CRAs don't deal with patients ever. Never. They just look at the books. Sites deal with patients. That's it. Just keep those 2 things separate. Sites also work on source, IP, and regulatory. So if you go interview for a coordinator position, they'll ask you similar things, but it's from a different perspective, from a site perspective. Right? Like one of the most clear examples of the same topic that's asked differently depending on the employer is informed consent. Right? As the site, you're actually doing the informed consent. Like you're the one doing it. You're going to do it tomorrow with Kobe. CRAs never do that. CRAs monitor it after the fact to see if the process was done as per GCP, if it was documented as per Alcoa-C, if the ICF log is filed in the reg binder, if the patient has been enrolled in the study, screened. Okay. Sometimes enroll can mean screen or actually randomized. Don't get confused with these words. Right? And just read the book. That book is good. It's going to go through all those. Okay. So this ICF, with the way we learn it, it's an informed consent. You know all the basics already. Now, depends on who interviews you, what they focus on. A site is going to ask, I've had students interview for sites, and the sites ask the coordinator scenario-based questions too. As a coordinator, if you're doing a consent form with a patient, and the patient finishes the visit and leaves, and later you look at the informed consent and you see one of the pages is missing an initial and date, and it's the site SOP to have initial and date on every page. Okay, or it's the IRB requirement maybe. It's different. Every IRB, every site's different SOP for that. And you find one missing, as a coordinator, what do you do? That's an interview question they'll ask you as a coordinator. They can ask you that same exact thing as a CRA. The answers are kind of different. Because as a CRA, you're going to say, well, this is a deviation. I'm going to look at the SOPs. If it's against the SOPs or the IRB protocol, this is a deviation. It's going to be filed as a deviation, one that affects patient safety. I'm going to look at the site's process of consent, retrain the site. Right? Same issue with the coordinator. Their answer is not going to be any of that. Right? It's going to be, well, I'm going to talk to my PI. Maybe we can get the patient to come back in. They can late entry and initial. We could write a note to file. Patient actually did review it, but did not want to do we didn't want to backdate, so they initialed late entry, but they still did it and they received the copy. We still followed our process.
Okay.
Right? What they don't want to hear, there's things they don't want to hear from both of those. Also, right? But see, the same topic can have completely different answers, and neither one is wrong. It's just who you are in the overall landscape of research. That's why this can get confusing and you have to know it both sides. Depends on what you want to apply for. Like for Summer it doesn't matter because she's all regulatory. You know, it'll matter later if she ever wants to get into that kind of role. And then she'll have to know these things too. But for you guys, for sure, because you're going to be most likely coordinator and CRA, you're going to be probably in-house CRA first, a trial master file. Who knows? Maybe in Canada it's even easier to get entry-level CRA. I actually think it is than here. I think that's your advantage.
Yeah.
I think it's easier in Canada to be entry-level CRA than here.
We'll try.
But you see, like the same topic, different.
It's not yet.
You have to know like what your role is of what you're doing. Like that's why with Chris you were doing site stuff, but here you're doing CRA stuff different. It's important, and it's don't mix things up. Like another common one is completion visit and early termination visit. Do you know the difference?
Early termination is when I guess the
Or ET?
the subject opt out.
Yeah.
So
Subject can drop out.
Yeah, so you
Like the subject can want to drop out, the PI can want to drop them out, or the sponsor can want to drop them out.
yeah.
GCP states that, okay, they drop out, every attempt should be made to have an early term visit. It's a safety visit. You just do another blood draw, ECG, all the safety stuff. Make sure that the site lets the patient know, okay, go back on your regular meds. If you're with a doctor that's not from our clinic, you need to go tell them that these are your lab results, you were just in a study, if they want. If the patient wants to, they don't have to. Right? So that's an early term, it's safety. If you just take somebody off of their meds, no matter what condition they have, they can't just go without meds. So they should be told, the patient should be told, okay, now you're going to go to your doctor and you should be requested to be put on, back to your current treatment. So that's the purpose of early term visit. Now, subjects don't have to come to the early term, right? Or they don't have to do all the assessments either. There's also a loss to follow-up, which we'll get into later. But so that's early term. Completion visit is the same exact thing. It's just when the subject naturally came to that point. But the same assessments. And the same thing. Now you're going to be off the meds. Now you're going to go, referred back to your primary care. This should all be documented too. Right? But be careful with the referred back to primary care as a site, because if the patient, nowadays the informed consents have a box where it says, I do not want my doctor notified that I'm in a study. If they check that box that they don't, you can't refer them back. You can just tell the patient, you should go back to your doctor. And if you want a copy of the consent, you have one. If you want a copy of your labs, let us know. If they check yes, it's okay for the doctor to be notified. then the site can refer them back.
Is it a referral form?
It could be anything, like just even like a documented that they were called to make an appointment.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be formal, but that's on the ICF too. If the patient wants the PCP notified of their participation or not,
Mhm.
they can check yes or no. But if they check no, the site can't actually
Okay.
notify them. That's a violation of the privacy, right? That's a new thing. They started adding that recently. I've
I
noticed
think I
that a
saw
lot.
it in one of these forms.
And these ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of them. Yeah.
See, when I started coordinating in 2005, that wasn't the case. The practice was to have all of the doctors notified. As long as they sign a HIPAA release,
Mhm.
then you can do that. But now it's on the consent form. You don't need to do that. If they put no, you don't do that. What did you guys find on the? What else are you confused about? You said it was pretty hard.
Yeah, I really don't understand the process. Like, whoa, the comment sections on how to fill the comment sections.
On the report, the
On the
comment,
report,
yeah, the comment section.
So,
There's no easy answer because it's all depending on the situation that it is.
so for instance, yeah, this is the one I worked on. And basically, this is one of I wrote down some of the things I feel is wrong.
Okay.
And this is my report.
But how do you feel that they're wrong? How do you know if they're wrong or not?
So I looked at the files in details, and I see that some sections are kind of missing there.
What files? Regulatory?
No, sorry. The
Source?
source here.
Okay.
So some informations were missing. So one of the information is like the one I told you about before, the body temperature for the vital signs. So it's required in Celsius, but I think when they were filling it, it was filled in
They
Fahrenheit.
captured it in Fahrenheit?
Yeah, so things like that.
That would be, yeah, because that's consistency. They're not being consistent.
Yeah.
Right? And the source has to be consistent. And in the report, I need to see if that's, because in one of the report, this is for our own CRO, but in one of the reports I do as a contract CRA, it actually asked, is source being kept consistent? And here it says, is there adequate adherence to the protocol? Are source documents adequate? So in that case, when they're capturing the wrong type of data, that would be a comment.
Yeah.
And then that would be an action item for the site to correct that and to, is this yours?
Yeah.
That would be an action item for the sites to correct that and to fix that in the future. And then what happens if you tell them that and it's a follow-up letter and you're still seeing the same thing over and over again?
Then
What would you do as a CRA?
as a CRM, I'm gonna document it. That's number one. It's
But what do you document? You're documenting in your
yeah.
report and in your follow-up letters.
Mhm.
But what do you? I mean, they're gonna keep doing it because let's say it's 5 times in a row now, on different subjects, they're making the same mistake, and it's like 3 people making the same mistake, because it's vital signs, so it's the people collecting the vitals.
I'll talk to the coordinator. Probably retrain the coordinator.
Retrain. There you go. Retrain. And training is part of what?
Regulatory.
I'm circling it. Training one. But you see how a source issue triggers a regulatory issue. And once you learn how these things interact with one another, it's gonna be easy. The hard part will be then learning the new protocols. But the process is, once you figure out how all these things relate, it's gonna be easy. Like I said, the hard part is the new protocols. That's it. If you can figure out how all these things integrate, then you have a true understanding of the process. From any position, CRA, project manager, coordinator, easier said than done because you need hands-on for that,
So,
right?
and another thing I found out in the vital sign is looking at the what's it called? The schedule of events.
There you
It
go.
requires the height to be captured.
The what?
The height.
Okay.
But I see in the screening visit 1, the height was captured, but it was written in a pen, not typed.
They type. Oh, so what was not typed? So the
The
source
height.
didn't include height.
Yeah, they didn't include height.
Okay,
That's one.
that is okay.
That's
I thought
okay?
that was the camera fault. That's okay. But so what would you do as a CRA in that case? Because the site technically they didn't commit any deviation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
but,
good.
But I would rather talk to the coordinator to include that height in the.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what section of the report is that issue?
That's where.
It's right there. I just saw it on Napoleon's. Let me see. I just saw that. I love that, man. I'll never forget it. Page.
Staff and facility.
No.
No, I have it.
That's the rest of yours.
Oh, okay.
Page 4.
Page.
I'll give you a hint. It's on page 4. Which item of the report would that be checked? No. Page 4.
Okay, 21.
Yeah. And then it would be and no is shaded, right? So that would explain. That would require longer comments.
Oh, now I'm getting
Get
to
it?
understand now. So for every mistake you find, you look for where it is.
Yes.
Then you make a comment if it's okay.
And no one's judging you like, oh, you said 21, but technically it's 23. It's as long as it's in the same section, it's okay, and your comments will explain it.
Okay, that's fine. So
Yeah.
in that kind of comment, well, how do you make the comment?
CRA observed site was not site source template was lacking a data point which the coordinator had to handwrite in each time, and this could be cause for CRA believes this could be cause for potential errors in the future. So CRA advised site to recreate source for future visits, source templates. Or if the site creates their own templates.
Mm-hmm.
If the sponsor created those templates, then you put CRA request sponsor to consider revising source templates.
Okay.
And if it's the sponsors and you caught that, and let's say 5 other monitors before you monitored and they didn't catch that, you're looking good right now. Because the sponsors can be like, oh yeah, that's true. But how come Napoleon didn't catch that? He would no, not that dramatic, but you would look good. You would look really good.
I take your job.
You get brownie points for that. And they may not even tell you anything if you missed it, but they're gonna keep that. Your manager's gonna keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Unless you have a mean one that's like, hey, how did you not catch this?
Mm-hmm.
But usually they're just like, okay.
Yeah.
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 They'll keep it there.
Mm-hmm.
And if they see a lot of that from you,
Yeah.
they'll be like, hey man,
We gotta talk.
yeah. I let it go a bunch of times, but I'm seeing this. Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And that's what keeps CRAs on their toes. Because you know that, okay, if you're relaxing a little, somebody else is not,
True.
right? And so that's gonna keep, motivate you. Especially when you're a contract CRA.
Oh
They're
yeah.
paying you good money for that.
Yeah.
Like they're paying you at that point to find things like that.
Then another thing came across is after the screening visit 1, they stopped including the height, putting the values for the height.
And so what I would do, if I were the CRA, I would go into the EDC and see if the height is required for that visit. Or
Yes.
maybe it was only required for visit 1.
So it's required, when I check the schedule of event, it's required throughout.
Height?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's probably required in the
Because it's
EDC.
part of the vital signs. So the vital signs needs to be
Okay.
there.
Alright, so that's another one. I mean, which number would that be?
It's gonna be same.
Yeah.
In same section.
Mm-hmm. And your response will be same thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's an example of source. And let's say you document that in your follow-up letter, site needs to recreate the source, and they continue to not do it, and they continue to forget, right? Then you gotta do training, right?
Regulatory.
Yeah, regulatory, so training. Like you'll learn, these are big themes. Training is a big theme for monitors and for sites. Like, because you can only tell the site so many times that you go and they're doing the same thing. So then you have to start doing other things like training. Alright. If you have time, do retraining that visit. Most monitors don't have time for that, or not all the staff that need to be there are there. So they just put as action item for somebody from the site to train the staff. But if they don't do that, you're gonna have to do it at some point. As a CRA, as a CRC, you're also looking, like when you go with to Cleveland, you can take the perspective of being like the monitor for the site. I'm gonna look at all the books before the monitors come. I did this with Dan and Chris. I can do it here too. Before the monitors come, I look at all the books. I'll write my reports for you, and then you guys fix it before the monitors come. Right? Like if you caught that missing height before the monitor actually catches it, it's
He
good.
gets to do yoga.
Then he gets. I will never forget that. I'll never. That's one of the funniest things I heard all year. Seriously. I understand where it's coming from though, which makes it even funnier.
No, man.
California would be a strange place for you. Well,
It's
let
gonna
me just
be,
tell you that.
it's really gonna be,
But Canada should be a fairly strange place for you too.
right?
They do all kinds of crazy stuff there.
I don't stay in where there's crazy stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. What else? What you guys
So
are...
in the concurrent med form, the PI is supposed to sign at some point, but it was missing.
ConMed?
Yeah. Though
Excellent.
it's not, there was no information there, but at least.
You see? Okay, when does a PI sign the ConMed log? This is a perfect interview question for CRA or coordinator.
When does he sign it?
Yeah. Or she. It's 2019, man.
Okay.
ConMed log. 2019. When?
When there's one.
Hmm?
When there's comment.
What is ConMed? Let's start with that.
It's a medication that the subject is currently taking
While they're in the study. So let's say the study's 8 months, okay? And the patient comes in and in the screening visit, they capture all the meds, okay, that the patient's currently taking. Would it be okay for the PI to sign it at that visit?
Yes.
No, wait.
Okay, yes is okay by yes, but? Because no is also okay. But then no why? Yes, but No. Why? I'm okay with either one, but I've got to hear more. So you said yes.
I also guess.
I think the conmed log should be signed at every time.
Patient visit.
No, not patient visit.
It can be, but
Every
then
time they
that's a
change-
lot of work.
So it's signed at the end of the.
There you
At the
go.
completion of the study.
That's the answer.
I remember
Because
that.
if there's like 10 visits or 20 or I don't care how many, whatever they're taking at visit 1 may change by the time the patient's done. Or they may be taking new stuff in the future.
Mhm.
So if the PI signs at screening, it's okay. You can argue that they're signing to make sure there's no prohibited meds. But they also need to sign when the patient's completed from the study, whether it's completed or early term. So in that case, they would sign twice. Or no, why? For the reason I just explained.
Yeah.
We wait till the end, which is what most sites do. They wait till the end when it's all complete. Okay, same thing with delegation of duties log. When can the PI initial it or sign? You know, when someone starts, when they end, but also there could be staff being changed during the study. So you don't want to sign it too soon,
Yeah.
right? Same thing with the conmeds.
That's good. Your camera on your phone.
Yeah.
Remember what Chris said yesterday?
Yeah, that's what he said. It could do both.
I don't know how you do that, man. I don't know. So another thing.
Yeah, during the audiobook I was doing that too.
So in screening visit 2, I noticed the requisition form for pregnancy test.
Okay.
So for every visit is required the pregnancy test, right? But I noticed
If they're of childbearing potential, yeah.
yeah, so it's required. I think it's part of the protocol.
But what if they're not of childbearing potential? Like documented, surgically sterile, or postmenopausal?
No. Oh, that's true.
Yeah, those are the two. It's always once you get into a field, it's more about the exceptions, not the rules. Like once you get into a field, it's more about the exceptions as opposed to the rules. So that's right, you're right. But you gotta look in the book. Okay, is it surgically sterile? Or is it postmenopausal? And the protocol often will state in which case it's okay to forego the pregnancy test. Sometimes they could be surgically sterile or postmenopausal, and then the protocol says you still have to do it. But usually you can bypass the pregnancy test if it's documented that it's surgically sterile or postmenopausal.
Okay. So another question now.
Yeah. Do you guys need that?
No.
You see, you have
Do you have a way to break down the protocol into checklists during the monitoring visit?
I'm sure there's some series that do it. I don't. I go with the EDC, like what's there. And then if I'm doing the SDV, I'm gonna make sure that everything that's there is on the source. But the real value of monitoring is the SDR, source data review. That's where you get paid. But that's why you get paid the money. It's SDV.
to see the things
Yeah.
like the
I mean, SDV is easy. Like my 14-year-old nephew can do it. It's not hard. He doesn't need any training. I just give him this paper and say, make sure these things are the same in here. You don't need, that's not why series get paid. SDR.
Could
Is
it-
it okay with the protocol? Is it okay with GCP, this data? Is it the way the site did it? Is this okay with the protocol? Is this okay with GCP? Alcoa, see, that's where you get that money. Not SDV. They could almost have robots do that. When the eSource, you're gonna see eSource tomorrow. What the industry's trying to do, because eSource is gonna be just entered, like, so the algorithm can read it and see what's in the EDC and match. You don't even need a person for that. But what they can't do yet is it compliant with protocol, with GCP? Is it ethical? IRB safety? They can't do that yet. And that's why they need you guys.
So, for instance, like the the example I gave the other time, the capturing of the body temperature in Celsius and or Fahrenheit, that's SDR, right? Or SDB.
If they captured it in Celsius, but in the EDC it says Fahrenheit, and they put the same thing, they didn't convert it, that's SDB. Okay, if they didn't convert it. If they did, then you're looking at SDR. Like, is that AE? Is the
It's too high,
Yeah.
too low.
Yeah. Is that an unreported AE? Like, if it's a fever, that should be adverse event. Or if it's low temperature, it should be adverse event. And that's also what you're looking at. Okay, when you notice things that could be AEs, you have to catch that. That's SDR. That's not SDV. SDV won't catch AEs that are unreported. You have to go read through the notes, lab results. Sometimes lab results will be indicative of AEs, right? That's why they hire nurses to be CRAs too, RNs. They can't find enough of them. But if you're an RN, you'll be a CRA right away. So you gotta really know the stuff, look into it, know the therapeutic area as well. All this stuff we covered is without even talking about any therapeutic indication. This is just the principles. Alright, let's say you mastered all of this that we just talked about. An employer would be like, okay, that's good, but what do you know about cancer? We have a study for breast cancer right now. Or what do you know about irritable bowel syndrome? You know, what are the assessments? Do you know how to look at the Mayo score? Do you know how to, or if it's schizophrenia, PANS. The one you're going to, there's a lot of psych. You know, okay. What are the assessments? Do you know the meds? The stuff I was talking to Kobe about earlier. Con meds, can we get them in the study? That's what they're going to care for you, because you're going to be at the site. And for you, CRA, they're going to think, is this a contraindicated medication? That's important. Contraindicated, okay? If there's a chance that the study drug, well, if they know something about the study drug, okay, even if it's placebo with a study drug, if there's a chance the patient gets the study drug, the protocols are usually going to have a list of prohibited meds, medications that they know potentially interact adversely with the IP, and the site enrolls that patient anyways because they didn't see that part or they forgot. That's a safety issue, and that's why monitors, and that's nothing to do with SDV. Let's say, for example, I'm just going to name a random drug. Let's say, for example, Abilify is excluded. It's listed in the protocol. This is a prohibited med. Right? Let's say the site ignores that or just forgets, or maybe the coordinator's new, so the generic name for the drug is something else. I think it's omeprazole or something. What is it? Omeprazole, yeah. So that, let's say that's written instead of Abilify in the source, and the coordinator doesn't know. They look at the protocol and they say, oh, the Abilify, no, I don't see Abilify here, because they're seeing omeprazole. Alright, they randomize that patient. Right? They put it in the ConMed log. they put it in the EDC, no problem. So CRA is doing SDV, and they're like, okay, that's good. Alright. Who's to stop, who's to notify the site that that is a problem?
The client first, the subject, because the subject was started.
Subject doesn't know.
No, the CRA.
So-
The CRA.
Wouldn't
Subject
they start
have no
to
idea.
experience some adverse?
That's the
adverse effect?
SDR.
And
That's
that's where
the
the
SDR.
CRA comes in.
That's the SDR.
You're expected to go through those and say, okay, Abilify, aripiprazole, this thing that's on the EDC that I'm seeing, that you put, is actually a contraindicated. This is a deviation. Right? Potential safety issue. Sometimes they have prohibited meds not for safety, but for data, for efficacy. Maybe Abilify works really good for the same symptoms as the study drug, and they want to actually see that it's the study drug, not the Abilify. So sometimes it's not safety issues, but they'll never tell you it's prohibited because it's a safety issue, or it's prohibited because it's gonna improve the outcome of the patient. They'll just say it's prohibited.
Mhm.
The CRA has to know why. If it's prohibited, it's deviation no matter what. Alright, but is it IRB reportable? That's where you get into the debate. Remember, IRB is just patient safety. So you gotta know these things. Because if you're just doing SDV and you see the aripiprazole on the source, and you see it in the EDC, and you say, okay, good, I'm done, and something happens to that patient, and they're gonna see, okay, how many times did you monitor and you didn't see this? And it's truly the PI's fault, but that's why they're paying you guys for that. Because you know how the PIs are. And sometimes they don't know. They're supposed to know. Hey, this study drug is this class. It could maybe there's a chance it contraindicates in an adverse way, and we shouldn't have this patient. But sometimes they just sign what the coordinators give them, and then that's why they rely on you to go do the SDR. And if you're a good monitor, you're going to catch that on the first visit when you look at it and say, nope, right away this is wrong. Goes in the report, this is a deviation. Patient, oh, what would happen in that case if the patient got randomized?
What about the patient?
Patient got randomized, taking the drug, it's with a prohibited med,
So
Yeah.
first of all, what
and you discovered it as a CRA.
You have to stop the site from.
you cannot stop the site, right? It's only the
No,
sponsor can
That's-
stop the site, but you have to contact, report it to the sponsor.
Yeah,
And
but
then
that takes
medical-
time.
medical-
no, but you have to
That
stop
takes
this
time.
time. You have to
So
stop it.
yeah, so what you do, you tell the PI to contact the
Yes.
subject immediately and
Immediately.
stop,
That's right.
taking the
That's what I meant.
yeah.
And put in your report and report it to the sponsor and all that, yes.
Okay.
Alright, but when you do that, when you're not going to the sponsor first because you think there's a potential big safety issue,
Mhm.
and you're telling the site what to do, you better be damn sure that that's correct. Because if you thought it's Abilify but it's something else, and you told them to do that and now they took out the patient, and later they discover, oh no, that was not aripiprazole, that was written down something else, the CRA thought it was that. But they told us to take the patient out.
But before you do that, there will be some conversation, because you're gonna ask, make sure it's
With
just
the coordinator.
notified,
Yeah.
Ideally, you would talk to the PI
Mhm.
and say, hey, I noticed this, this is a prohibited medication. Are they actually taking this? Or is this something else that you wrote
So that's
incorrectly?
gonna be stated in the protocol, right? The,
Yeah, prohibited meds. Yeah, if you look in there, it's there. There's prohibited meds in there.
Where?
In the protocol.
Oh, that's the protocol.
Yeah, and sometimes they're in here, but in this case, it's like a small, convenient one they give you.
Hmm.
That's in my opinion, the CRA's most important task of anything they do in life is, as far as monitoring, is making sure only patients that belong in the study are enrolled. If you can slack anywhere else you want, I don't care, SDV, sure, but don't let, because that could actually impact somebody's life. And it's true, it's the PI's responsibility, but if you missed it as a CRA and you find out something happened to that patient, you're gonna have guilt.
Mhm.
Right? You say, damn, I should have seen that. It's just, that's the most important. Just focus on that, i.e., inclusion, exclusion, prohibited med, those are there for a reason. Sometimes it's safety. Usually it's something to do with the data. They don't want the data influenced falsely. You know, like false improvement, but it's not due to the study drug, it's due to the conmeds. So sometimes it's all about data, but if it's about safety, it's important stuff. It's very important. You don't want, and that happens unfortunately like quite often, where patients are enrolled when they shouldn't be, and it's a direct safety issue. That's how FDA audits happen too. If a patient dies because they were in a study, and it's unexpected, like it's not an oncology study where a lot of people die, but the FDA is going to find out and they're going to audit that site at some point.
And you would be on a job and you would not practice again.
That's right, and they look at who the monitor was too. Just like we can look in the reg binder right now, Summer has it, but we can look in the reg binder and see who the monitors were, right? So can an auditor. And say, oh, well, I was here for like 5 monitoring visits, didn't see that. Who is this guy? And then they go to your employer and say, who are you hiring, where are you hiring? And if you're still there, you're in trouble with the employer. Most likely you're somewhere else and that's nothing that can happen. But if you're still there,
That's the end of the contract.
yeah, I think so. And if you're a contractor, not an employee, but an independent contractor like I am, you can even get sued by the employer. Negligence. I can get sued. I'm a contract CRA. If I'm an employee of that CRA or CRO, I can get sued unless I'm committing fraud. But if it's just like negligence or I wasn't trained properly or like I don't know what I'm doing, that's my employer's fault. But when you're a contract CRA, you are self-employed.
Yeah.
You're like a business doing business with another business.
Mm.
If you screw up there, they can sue you, and you're supposed to have errors and omissions insurance as a contract CRA in case those things happen. Because you're human, you might miss. You know, maybe you're tired.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't see it. It's not on purpose, and you're not lazy. You had 800 things to look at, and on one of them, you missed this. Right? Errors and omissions insurance. Now, these CROs don't want the reputation of suing their contractors because then no one's going to want to work for them. But if it's something that they feel merits that, they will.
Yeah.
But they won't make a habit of just suing every contract CRA because then nobody's going to want to work with it. The reputation will get out. But it's possible. It's a very real possibility. So when you're a contract CRA, just be careful because you're getting paid more, but you're on your own. Like, you're responsible. Maybe that's why that one girl was crying when she was calling. I don't know. I think she was an employee, though, but still. She lied. So she actually could be sued by her employer. Because at that point, it's fraud. But I don't think she knew that. She would have been crying even more.
Wow.
So they didn't contact any of our referral from the resume or something?
The sponsor can.
They didn't contact before employing her. And if they do, and those people say, no, you didn't work for this certain of time, you only work for this certain of time.
Again, they're careful with that because they don't want the reputation that they're an employer that sues their employees. That would scare a lot of good people from working there. And if they do that enough, they get a reputation with the Glassdoor and all these reviews.
Yeah.
So they're careful, but if it's when someone really deserves it, they'll do it. But there are some companies that have a reputation for that. Happens a lot in the business development. It's not safety issues, but it's let's say I hire you to find studies for my CRO, and then I'm paying you and you're finding these studies for me, and that's your job. You're exclusive with me. and I make you sign a CDA, a non-compete. In California, it's not enforceable, but in many states it is. And then I find out that you go and compete with my direct competitor. So I'm paying you, and you're also getting paid by someone else. All right, you can get sued for that too. And there's companies that are very tough on that.
That's working for their competitors.
Yeah, BizDev.
I'm doing business.
If you sign a non-compete, okay, and it's enforceable in your state, in California it's not enforceable.
I'm not gonna sign that.
Then they won't hire you.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good strategy too. I mean, that's fair.
I'm not gonna sign it.
Then you have the right not to. But many people are, you know, they need it.
Then I do it. They will never get to know.
Tom said on camera.
That's alright. I mean, but it's reality. This happens.
Never get to know.
I'm just telling you the reality.
Yeah.
I don't judge at all what anybody does. It's not my concern really. But just be careful with those things. But more important than that, because that's just whatever, is the safety of the patients. Because that's if you can summarize the job of a CRA in like one sentence, it's to keep patients safe that are in the study.
Yeah.
Even though that's the PI's job, then that's your job because you're like that other line of defense. And then the next line of defense is the FDA, and you don't want them to be involved.
Right.
Because they're not playing around when they come in. So that's what the CRA is most important, in my opinion, and I challenge anyone to argue with me on that, is patient safety. And it's not just something that sounds good, like it's for real, like it could be bad, dangerous. Especially when you get into some of the drugs, some of the IPs, like opioids. There used to be more opioids, like painkillers. Those tend to lower blood pressure. And then you have IP that may also lower blood pressure. You're taking both, or you're dead. Careful. And some of these patients have long list of CONMEDs. Long. You've seen some. I think some of them have long. So it's a lot.
So you have to look deep.
Yeah. And you'll never have, the good news, you'll never have this much to look at once. That's just for this exercise. You'll never have this much. You'll have like this much worth on average.
For every?
Yeah. With the regulatory too. But this amount of visits, like 10 visits to SDV and SDR, in my opinion, or in my experiences as a CRA, between 8 to 12 visits each time I monitor that I'm reviewing, with regulatory and with IP, but 8 to 12. Sometimes less, sometimes a little more, but you don't want too much more because then you start rushing and you can get into a lot of mistakes. And the biggest ones are the ones that impact patient safety. The other ones you can live with, no one's going to get hurt, but you just make a mistake. But when the patient safety and that's your job, those are the ones you got to watch out for.
So do you get them from these pages?
That's the lab results.
Okay.
You can read those and see, maybe the PI just put NCS, but you have a feeling that that's not NCS, that it's clinically significant. You can talk to the PI and say, hey, no, I have never seen a lab result this high for this item. Are you sure it's NCS? I just want to ask. And maybe they made a mistake and they say, no, that should be CS. Sorry. And actually I'm going to have the patient come back to do a redraw because that's too high. So those are cases where you can catch the mistakes too that they make. So yeah, every detail.
So
luckily it tells you when it's off. You know, these ones you don't have to worry about. They're normal. Abnormal, abnormal.
So that's the one they sign.
Yeah.
And you have to look at if...
Yeah. When they're abnormal, it comes here on the side.
Okay.
See? Abnormal, abnormal, normal, normal. You can ignore the normals.
So the abnormal.
The PI shouldn't ignore the normals either, though, because sometimes something could be just barely normal, and if it's combined with some other things that are barely normal, it may mean something is about to occur. Like sometimes there's signs before it happens in the lab, like nuances, but CRAs are not expected to know that.
Oh, this one?
You're not supposed to know, you're not expected to know how these lab results
Wow.
interact with each other and what it could potentially lead to. That's a PI's job. But you can at least look at what's abnormal and see if it's something that you've seen before within that range, or if it's truly should be clinically significant. And what happens if the lab result is clinically significant? What should the site be?
What do you mean by clinical significant?
Clinically significant. Like a lab result comes back and it's clinically significant and the patient's in the study.
I know not clinical significant.
NCS?
And clinical significant.
NCS or CS? Okay. That's for
You
the
told us
lab.
yesterday.
And for the EDC, for the ECG too. NCS, CS. What if the PI saw the lab result and said, okay, yeah, this is clinically significant?
It should be considered in the decisioning or in the
Well, what the site should do immediately is a redraw. If it's still significant, they have to decide to withdraw the patient. And it's a AE, or maybe even a SAE.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
So again, when it's clinically significant, it means that PI should immediately after a redraw.
Redraw.
If it's still clinically significant, then
You gotta look. If it's clinically significant before a redraw, because you're gonna look and see if that's actually part of the subject medical history, right? Like let's say they're HIV positive, but it's not excluded from the study to be HIV positive. So anytime they run that test, every time it's gonna be clinically significant. But that patient can continue because it's part of the IE criteria. It's okay, and there's no redraw needed. But if it's a new result of HIV positive, right? It's clinically significant with the further actions need to be done. First you gotta confirm it, so redraw. And then if it's confirmed, you look at the inclusion-exclusion criteria, probably HIV is not allowed. Early term. And then refer to the PCP or tell the patient to go get put on treatment.